You are live. Hello. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Lucy.
Good noon to you. It is morning where I
I,
am. You are in New York City. Is that right?
I am. It's noon for me. Lunchtime.
Okay. Well, I'm still having coffee, and you can have whatever beverage of choice is appropriate on a Friday at noon in New York. I make no judgment. Plus, I don't disclose what's in my coffee cup, but it is called coffee,
It
and
could be water. It could be
I
vodka. Who knows?
don't know. I hail from the Ukraine. You never know. All right, that's inappropriate, I'm sure, but that's what this is all about. We're live, we're unscripted. We're going to talk all things contracts, AI, corporate, in-house, CLO jobs, everything. So first, Laurie, do a little intro. What you
Yeah,
what you doing there at your little company there? What's going on?
I'm Laurie. I'm so I'm the chief legal officer at Dioptra. We're a legal tech startup in the AI space. I'm sure you've never heard of a legal tech startup in the AI space, but we're one of them.
What?
um, and we're in the contracting space. So essentially, we make contracts smarter with AI, make the process of negotiating, redlining, pulling data out of contracts easier, faster. Um, and it's kind of the tool that I dreamed of having, I don't know, like 15 years ago when I had a 300-page playbook for 100+ page counterparty papers. And I'm like, but the playbook is black and white. Why can't we automate it? And
Yeah,
now we can. And so it's very exciting to be working for a company that's bringing this vision that I had 15 years ago to life.
I love it. I love it. So a 300-page playbook. Kudos for having a playbook. But I'm so sorry to hear that. I will tell you though, we still have clients today that have multiple 100-page playbooks that we are always surprised to see. But that is what it is. Let's talk a little bit about commercial contracting and efficiencies. Really, it's really the name of the game for me. Is like it's efficiencies. Yes, AI right now is a huge game changer, and we'll get to that in a sec in deeper dive. But contracting efficiency. Why is every law department still struggling with how to do contracting better? I lived and breathed it. 13 years plus in house, two different places, but mostly Microsoft, and nobody seems to know how to figure it out. We found ways to make it better. That's what I've obviously devoted my life's work to. It feels like. But tell me, what are you seeing in this struggle?
I think time. It's always time. So, when I was at Datadog, I
Well,
I
tell us about
constantly
that.
told,
You
oh
came
yeah,
from
sorry.
Datadog, yeah. So
I
cool what
was
you're
the chief
doing
commercial
now.
counsel.
Tell us about what you were doing. Yeah, what you learned, what you did there, hands on.
Yeah. So I was the chief commercial counsel at Datadog. I started as the chief counsel for sales and alliances, and they brought me in because they wanted to create a scalable function. And
Mm-hmm.
I was, a commercial counsel at Cognizant, and then I moved into legal ops because I just thought we could do things smarter.
Yeah.
And so my entire focus at Datadog was creating essentially a framework that I actually posted on LinkedIn about yesterday, which is kind of like, what's the goal of commercial contracting? And the goal is great contracts, faster contracting because the business wants speed,
Business.
and then actually like not just throwing the contracts into drawers, but extracting the value of the contracts by knowing what's in them. And I really had this vision of the way they kind of all feed into the other. So if you if you really understand what you're negotiating and what matters, then you can figure out how to automate and educate and create the right playbooks so that you can contract much faster and even, you know, let teams self-help because you've already told them what matters.
Yep.
And then when you have the terms and you're able to see what's happening inside the contracts, that then can inform how you do things
That makes
around and around, like better terms each time and more ability to follow the terms so you have fewer disputes, right? So the whole system really feeds one into the other.
you know.
And then it was creating those like projects based on those and
Yeah.
having people actually work on them, which was so hard because everyone kept going, well, I have this deal, I have this deal, I have this deal, I have this deal, I can't, I have too many deals, it's too busy. And um, my husband came home from work one day and told me a story, and the story has just stuck with me,
Okay.
about two guys chopping down trees. And one guy just kept stopping and sitting, and the other guy just kept going and going and going and going. And the guy that kept stopping, his tree fell first, and the other guy's like, on earth? Like, I just worked and you just kept resting and your tree's down first. And the guy's like, I wasn't resting, I was sharpening my axe. And that to me is like the secret. It's like, yes, I get that there's always so much to do, but sharpening our axes, creating time to make efficiency happen is going to, in the end, close more deals.
Okay, there's so much goodness in what you said. I'm just like, the worst part of trying to do this live is, of course, I'm like, I have so much commentary and I need to just shut it. And you are laying down so much wisdom here. A couple of things that you said. You got to pause every once in a while to do things better. You just have to. And you are spot on. Legal teams know the struggle is real. They're frustrated. They want to do better. But that ability to kind of pause and rethink, it's hard. I'll tell you a little bit what we're seeing too. And you mentioned the 300-page playbook. We're seeing people jumping at solutioning in bits and chunks, but there's no like connective tissue and all the different solutions. So, and I'm not just talking technology, that is of course one of them. Solutions, right, is tech and automation and self-service, but templatizing, playbooking, right, ongoing continuous training, smart risk assessment, right, just taking on risk, all of that to us. And you said the word framework, another word we love. We're actually about to come out with a framework for contracting improvement. So I love that you were saying like, hey, here's how contracts should live and work. And we're like, yeah, what's the program around it though? How do you have a continuously improvement contracting program? Because people forget it's a program. People think contracts just come in and come out and come in and come out, and everything's annoyed, and it just keeps happening, and the business is frustrated, and legal's trying to create playbooks and templates, but not the right ones, and then they sit on a shelf. There is not that kind of cohesive view. So you lived it and breathed it. Give us some of the tips and tricks that were successful for you when you were in-house at Datadog in a very different role than you're in today.
Yeah. So I started with I always start with low-hanging fruit, easy wins, right? How do you give your team the bandwidth in order to start doing things smarter? And I was lucky because I wasn't doing deals. I got to just envision a program and execute on the program. So it gave me the bandwidth to start freeing my team's bandwidth. And the first thing I did was I was triaged everything that came in on the sales side. So I was very lucky. We already had intake that was centralized. So I saw everything that came in, which is amazing. And what a gift to have inherited that. And
what
so
was that? Wait, so
they use Salesforce.
The whole law department or just contracting?
Just sales side contracting.
Okay.
And this is they did it right, which is I like to meet my teams where they live. Sales lives in Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever CRM they're using. And so intake was in Salesforce. And it was, the beauty of it was not only did it help the sales team because they didn't have to leave Salesforce, but it helped the legal team because they saw all of the surrounding information about the customer and the deal that was already in Salesforce, and sales didn't have to retype the information because it was already there. I could always see what products were being used, what geography it was, who that salesperson's manager was, so I could know who to go to when there was a problem. I could see they used Groove, which sits in Salesforce and saves the email exchanges, so I could see like when the salesperson said, "Oh, no problem, we can totally use your form," when they couldn't use our form, right? Like I could see all of the things that sales tried to hide from us. So it was really wonderful to have that richness of data, and of course the value of the deal value, etc. And because it's like there's a little bit of accountability in terms of what you put in numbers for Salesforce, for your CRM, for your CRO, for all of your reporting. You don't want to keep projecting huge numbers and then have it fail. So there's a little more truth than I think legal normally gets. So that was great. So I had centralized intake, and the first thing I did was just everything that came in, and I inherited this. The person before me was triaging all the matters and assigning it to their team, so I kept that on for the first month and a half before I automated the assignments, because that's not a good use of my time. But what I was able to see is like at least 20% of what was coming in was me telling them, that's the wrong process. You are asking me for something that's not ripe, or you're asking me for something that we don't do, or you're asking me for something that you don't have the right approvals for. And so I was able to, just through education and through system changes in Salesforce, reduce the amount of wrong process noise. Exactly. And so I was able to free up time just by, like, it was nothing. Like it took
But
like
hold
very
on a
little.
second. Let me ask about this. You said the wrong process. That presumes there was a right process. Was this
Yes.
documented somewhere? Did people, so were they supposed to know this process already?
So for example, like my team didn't handle security reviews. We had a security team that handled security reviews. So that's an
Okay.
example of one of the wrong processes. And
Okay.
so we I actually built out a bunch of pages on our intranet. We were using Confluence. So I built out all of the information, but I also set it up so the system would tell them. So if they submit, so like there's a drop down where they choose what type of contract it is. And so if they tried to select something, like I think I left security reviews on there, but when they selected security reviews, then it would say, thanks for submitting, actually go here instead.
Right.
So they didn't have to memorize it. They didn't have to read in advance. It met them,
Yeah.
again, it met them where they were.
Yeah. So you had intake where they lived, which is amazing. And then other tips and tricks. What else did you do hands-on that I think now maybe you're applying? I'm curious in your current job.
So I did the playbook because what we had was a standard form with a different color text for all the things that could be added, but it didn't include the rationale. And I really think, especially when if you're onboarding new team members, which we constantly were because we were a growing, scaling company, you don't like, yes, I can negotiate a liability clause anywhere, but I don't know if I'm negotiating it right for that company without knowing what that company's risk profile is. So to me, the value of the playbook isn't just telling you what positions you can and can't take. It's about explaining why it matters to the company. So we can't agree to availability more than this because of XYZ factors, or we need this notice period to be this number of days because in order to, this is the process that happens once that notification comes in, and we need this amount of time to do that work, whatever it is. So
okay, and that's for the business to use? I mean, that rationale?
No, for the legal team.
Okay, thank you. So I was gonna be I was like, Laurie, nobody reads that in the business. So I'm so glad that was for the legal team, because the biggest thing we educate on when we talk about playbooks with our clients, we're like, let's not pretend the business is gonna read any of this. They need like red, green, yellow, yes, no, whatever. But you're right, for law department playbooks, which there's so many different types of playbooks. I'm glad actually we can dig into that. This was a playbook for the legal team.
Yep.
And that is a
with
different
deep explanations.
Yes, absolutely.
But we did do business. There were 4 things that we have allowed sales to do on their own.
Amen.
And so we had a playbook for sales just for those things, and they worked with Deal Desk on those, so they were not, on their own. And then we had a bunch of hard no's that we felt that sales had a vested interest in, let's put it. So like termination for convenience for a SaaS contract is actually turns into a month-to-month contract, which sales is not as good for sales for their commissions. So anything that had effect on sales commissions, we translated it into enough for them to argue it with the customer, because their interests and the company interests were very well aligned, and they certainly would want to serve their best interests.
Smart. So what I'm hearing you saying is, if you're going to empower the business, let's empower them on something that they have a vested interest in, and this directly hits their pocket. That's kind of evil genius stuff, Laurie. I thought about that one. Put that into our little racy matrix that we propose for clients. Like, but are they going to care? Oh yeah, they're going to care about that one. I like that. Okay, that's great. That's a great.
And then when I took over the vendor side, we actually did not quite the same thing. We didn't have the same, right? It's a different dynamic with different team members. You have lots of different stakeholders. So we have obviously a partner team in procurement. So while sales won't read a playbook, procurement absolutely will. And so we got rid of like half of our contracts by just saying to procurement, legal doesn't need to look at these. Here's like what you need to know about them.
Beautiful. I mean, you're also mentioning a couple of important things, I think, for some of the law departments, just for those who are different size and shapes. So you mentioned on the sales side, there's a deal desk. So now you have an in-between between sales and legal. I always say, if there's like a team that you could empower, look for those teams, not just the individuals that are out there running and squirreling away. Procurement, similarly, that is the function of procurement. So if you have a procurement team, hey, guess what? They need to be living and breathing in contracts. You should have higher expectations than just your general business and budget owner, right?
That's right. And there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration between legal and procurement, or legal and deal desk, right? You have system automations that you can do together so that you don't have duplication of work, and you have very smooth handoffs. So there's a lot of opportunities for synergy. Also systems, like one of the things that I've always said is like legal It's great if you have the budget and the time to invest in a system for legal, but start with what your company already has. Like for example, our intake through Salesforce didn't need a legal special intake.
That's right. That's right.
Salesforce is very flexible. You could create something there. Same procurement almost always has a system because it's a financial part of the company usually. And so if it's a financial part of the company, there's usually a system to go with it. And so you can piggyback on whatever they have, or if your company is using Jira or Asana or whatever, or Monday for tracking things, you can create connections between your space and their space. Like we used Jira at Datadog because it's an engineering heavy company. So Salesforce created a card in Jira, and then we can clone that card onto the privacy board, onto the security board, so that we can all work together while staying in our spaces, so to speak, for management.
So the macro lesson is use what you have. Again, throwing down so much wisdom. Laurie, let's just have it be known here. If you ever want to become a consultant, I know a lot of little expert consulting shop that is looking for people just like you. I mean, you're spot on. Why are people investing in things if they have already some tech at their fingertips? Plus, let's see, like there's a reason ServiceNow is doing legal intake, right? Workday, whatever. I mean, people are catching on to the fact that there's this legal connectivity. So why not do it as an add-on or connectivity versus trying to create a standalone legal tech solution? Although a lot of my friends would disagree with that. So I'm going to switch gears and go ahead.
I'll just say, I think it depends what you're doing. Like some things you need, right? Like a contract, like what we do, like what's in a contract, the actual substantive content of a contract, you can't get that in a non-legal system. It's just not going to provide the same value.
Yes. So, okay, perfect segue. And that's exactly where I wanted to head is I feel like there's a big differentiation in contracting technology, let's just call it all the things adjacent to contracting, where there is that kind of the I'm going to call it the dream of the end-to-end CLM system. And no shade on the CLM companies. Some are better than others. That's my job is to know that and having a strong opinion on that. But end-to-end can work in some very specific types of contracts, product lines, business. I mean, there's ways it can work. But enterprise CLM for all contracts, I can't. I just can't. I have not seen that successful. Certainly not for all contracts. But I still think of CLM systems as workflow more than that inside the four corners. What you talked about is the inside the four corners. And I just feel like technology can't be equally good at both. So tell us a little bit about what is AI doing today inside the four corners? And it's an explosion. It's just an explosion of capability that did not exist 2+ years ago, it feels like. So walk us through what is really happening with AI inside the four corners, the words.
So I'll tell you a little bit about I'm using my tool to do it, but I am using it for me. So I'll talk about my own experiences essentially. So obviously there's the basics, right? Like everyone's talking about AI for redlining. It's brilliant. It's amazing. I never have to go and add, material before breach for termination, right? It just gets done for me. If it's missing, it's not just little things like that. Like I have, I won't agree to unlimited liability for privacy and security breaches. So if the contract starts with that, the redline, my Dioptra will automatically redline it for me to remove it from the bucket of unlimited liability and add in a secondary cap. And it will use the exact language that the counterparty used for that privacy security, whatever it is used, whether it's a cross-reference to another section or it's a security breach or data breach or whatever they use, whatever their language is, where it was an unlimited liability, it's going to use that same language when it makes it the secondary cap. Like to me, that's
smart. So it's pretty smart. It's pretty smart because it's a little clunky. Not your specific system, but this functionality was a little clunky. 18 months ago, 12 months. It's like it literally gets better by the second. It feels like. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the models are changing. So, but it's not like. What I've found is you can't just move to the next model.
Yeah.
Because they all do different things. So for example, if I'm using 04 for a rule, it will add, it's very good at adding for those who aren't OpenAI's ChatGPT, they have different models. So 04 is one of them.
Remember, right, where the audience
Absolutely.
And I'm
Totally.
telling you, Laurie, there's a huge gap, by the way. There's a huge gap in kind of what, when I'm behind you, and my job's to know, and then the math, they can't keep up. So I'm going to keep kind of pulling it back. But I love that.
So there's kind of like very basic models, and then there are reasoning models for the LLM. So the reasoning models are really good for if you don't have a lot of direction, like if there's no force majeure, add a force majeure. You need a reasoning model to give you kind of a market-ish type of force majeure.
What's an example of a reasoning model?
So
people can think about.
Yeah, so Gemini Pro is a reasoning model. Claude 4 is a reasoning model. So these are kind of like the latest. Those are two of the latest reasoning models.
Okay, reasoning model. And an unreasoning model or an unreasonable model?
So GPT 4.0 is a dumb model. It's really dumb.
I like this. Helpful.
But it does not add any language. So if that first example of like adding material before breach, it will just do that. It won't add material and then try to extrapolate and do all these other things. It's just going to do that one simple thing. So if I want precision, and my precision is a very black and white, you don't have to do a deep interpretation to understand it, the dumber model gives me more consistent results. Again and again, the same thing. No matter how many times I run the rule, it will give me the same thing. Whereas the reasoning models will be able to accomplish more complex redlining, but they won't do it the same way every single time.
Interesting. I think this is like a huge nugget for people to walk away with, this concept of the reasoning model. And now remember, people out there buying AI left and right. We need AI. How do I buy AI? What AI? They're buying tools based on demos. They don't know. So if they're going to go and look in OpenAI, for example, how do they know which one is a reasoning? I mean, they're not labeled that way. I certainly have not seen anything that says, pick me, I'm reasoning and smart. Pick me, I'm a little dumb, but boy, I'm like.
So I spend most of my time in our own tool where we actually we have an add-in in Word, and that add-in in Word, you can choose which model you want to use for the chat function, not for the automated redlining, which gets set in the playbook generation, but in the chat where you're like ad hoc, like I don't have a playbook for this, but I have a standard form, mark this up like my standard form, that type of chat. Or my favorite, which is what I actually just did the other day, I was updating my privacy policy. I'm like, I want to know like how this compares to other companies' privacy policies. And so I went to the chat and I said, like, how does this privacy policy compare to, and then I listed a bunch of specific players that I'm not going to share because you don't need to know who I wanted to benchmark against. But it gave me, and I said, give me the results in a table. And it gave me a table that showed each section of the privacy policy and how it aligned with the other players' privacy policies. And then I asked to suggest red lines or suggest changes, because it's my own privacy policy, not a contract I'm negotiating, suggest changes to align with this aspect of this one and this aspect of that one. So I could, level up my privacy policy, which is great. So for that, like I'm using a reasoning model because I want it to go through and really not look at specific words, but look at the concepts that are behind the words across the different privacy policies.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
ours, like if you're pulling up the chat, you can actually choose, and we have a description next to each one saying like, this is good for this and this is good for this. So the user doesn't have to know the models, but know
which is
what
great. And we're seeing more and more of that in the free ones too. Now I know exactly what you mean in the free ones, right? They're like, I'm going to go deeper dive. This will take longer. So that's interesting. Okay, great. So a day in the life of Laurie reviewing contracts using the latest and greatest AI. Literally, you just gave some really great examples, but just walk us through it. Boom, sales sends you something, messages you something, attaches something. How does that come to you today?
So we're still small. And I like, one of the things when you're the CLO of a small startup, like you're in sales, you're in product development. So I know when something's coming in, and we just use email because the volume's not unmanageable yet. I hope it becomes unmanageable. Let that happen. When it becomes unmanageable, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. When it becomes unmanageable, there'll be an automation. So we can connect into Slack. We could connect into email. We are a very Slack heavy company, so I would probably use Slack. And so I would just have the automation. There'd be a Slack channel for contracts, and they would send it there, and then Dioptra would automatically pick it up and run it against my playbook, and then send me a message in Slack, your contract's ready. I'd open the contract in Word. And I will tell you, this is the one thing I do. I don't want to be lazy. My own brain lazy, I mean. And so when I first wrote,
don't we all want to be a little lazy? Okay, go ahead.
I want to be a little lazy. I don't want to do the black and white of the contract review. I want to do the gray. And so I want to review the contract. So when I look at the contract, the first time I get the red line back, I don't use I open the plugin. So I have my red lines and I read the red lines as if I had gotten it from one of my junior team members. And I read it through that way, because I know if I'm using the plugin, I'm just going to jump from issue to issue instead of reading the contract as a whole. And so this is my own personal, like, how do I make sure that I don't become AI stupid? I don't know if that's a term, but I think you can get AI stupid. Like, I don't want to, there's a lot of things I trust AI to do and do well. It's very good at summarization, for example. But I also know it doesn't know every minutia, because I haven't given it every minutia that's in my brain yet. One day, right? One day we'll have a little AI chip that sits right here.
Just downloads everything, right? Okay, so what's going to be left for us? We have a couple of minutes left. Okay, lawyers of today, we're on this weird, we're like this overlapping generation, it feels like. So I'm going to put you in my bucket. Like, we're kind of in this weird, I remember, email was starting and it was clunky and it was weird, and Westlaw, Lexis, and we were connecting through things that took a long time, and still having books, by the way, in the law library.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay, so we remember that. And then we watched the online and the availability of information that came faster and faster. And now this. I'm getting whiplash trying to keep up, but tell me, what can we expect, you and I, before we sail off into happy retirement land? Hopefully soon, but we got a couple of more years. What's AI going to do to our jobs, commercial lawyers?
So I think that not being lazy is part of it. Like, I was always the person that was trying to do too many things all at once. So maybe no, that's never going to change. Okay. But like, the lawyer that's just going to follow the playbook and isn't going to be additive is going to have to learn how to be additive. Like, you have to, and I think that the value that we provide is our judgment. That AI is a predictive tool. It is not, even though we call them reasoning models, they are not actually reasoning the way we reason. And so it's about the empathy, right? Understanding how people perceive things, understanding how to communicate well, understanding how to couch something the right way to achieve a result with a particular individual. AI can help us, it can coach us along, but I think that these skills are still fundamental and will continue to be fundamental while humans still exist.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, additive is another great word. I mean, we really have to be adding something. And I think what we're seeing now is this interesting, legal jumping to AI to become more efficient themselves. The business is, of course, watching, going, wait, do I actually need you in the middle, lawyer? Do I? And it feels like if we are there to meet them halfway and say, hey, you know what? Not for some stuff. Great. I'm glad you're here asking, because I'd love for you to do more on your own. Let's together figure out how we help you use AI. I'll teach it what it needs to know. And then I will be your strategic partner, right? So you're in a smaller company now. You obviously have a seat at the table. But for those lawyers who are still struggling to get a seat at the table, how should they use this AI explosion as actually a way in? I'm leading the witness a little, but I think we've got a way in.
I do. I agree with that. I think that, the thing, to me, the magic, I mean, it's great that AI can accelerate everything that we did before. But to me, the magic is what AI enables that wasn't possible at all before. And again, I love the interior of the contract. Think about all of the data that now we can actually mine from the contracts. Like, we can know for let's take liability. I know how many turns on average it takes to resolve the liability issue versus how many turns it takes to resolve this other issue. And so it's about, to me, like, the advantages are where we can really add strategically to what we're doing to create speed, to create intelligence. And so, like, what I would encourage people to do is, like, think outside the box. Don't just think this is what I've done and I can do it faster, but think, okay, if I could do anything, if I had all of the data in the world, like what would help me to help the business, right? And that's key, right? Legal is not in this little bubble. It's not like legal's doing contracts for legal contracts, right? We're doing contracts for the business. So what can we do that will make the business move faster, make the business be able to change the risk profile in a way that's the right decision for the business? And sometimes, by the way, that could be less conservative. Like maybe we have enough data to tell us where we can actually take on more risk that we've been scared to do before, or where can we, without changing our speed, reduce the risk. So it's really about thinking outside of the four corners of just turning documents, but what we can do now that we have so much more ability to process the data that's about the contracts.
That is a perfect ending note. We try to stay on time. Thank you so much, Laurie. So many nuggets and wisdom pieces. We are going to be extrapolating and doing little micro video quotes of you. That was fantastic. Cool. We're going to have to do a second one because these half hours fly way too fast with all of my favorite buddies in contracting. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Happy contracting. We're going to have you back again. Thanks, everybody. Happy weekend.
Bye, everyone.